Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a deep stack of research, cut through all the complexity, and give you those essential nuggets of knowledge you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we are looking at a piece of identification that is, well, profoundly misunderstood and, frankly, just massively underestimated.
We're talking about the individual taxpayer identification number, the ITIN.
Exactly. And our mission in this deep dive is to go way beyond the basic definition. We are going to uncover the ITIN's sort of hidden power as a key for unlocking financial wealth and access here in the U.S.
Right. Access to services that a lot of people just assume are only available if you have a Social Security number.
We've got sources covering everything from, getting your first credit card to accessing the stock market and even how to navigate the path to homeownership with an ITIN.
It's a huge range.
It is. But before we get to the really exciting stuff, let's just make sure we're all grounded. For anyone who's maybe hearing this term for the first time, what exactly is the ITIN?
Okay, so at its core, the ITIN is it's a 9-digit tax processing number. It's issued by the IRS.
And there's a key identifier, right? It always starts with a 9.
Always. That's the tell. And its main purpose, really its only official purpose, is to let people file their taxes when they aren't eligible for a Social Security number.
So we're talking about non-resident and resident aliens, certain spouses, dependents.
Exactly. Anyone with a tax filing obligation in the U.S. who can't get an SSN.
Okay, so it sounds pretty straightforward, like just a tax tool. But the limitations are really important here, aren't they?
Oh, they're critical because they define what the ITIN can't do. First and foremost, it does not grant work authorization, full stop.
Right.
It also doesn't give you access to Social Security benefits when you retire. Not unless you later get legal residency and an SSN, of course.
And one other big one, the Earned Income Tax Credit.
No, you don't qualify for the EITC with an ITIN. It exists purely for federal tax reporting.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, and I think this is the big aha moment from our sources that everyone needs to hear. It's this economic paradox.
Yeah.
You have millions of people paying into a system they can't really draw from, but their financial contribution it's just enormous.
It's massive. The sources paint this incredible picture of, well, fiscal responsibility. So back in 2015, just 1 year, 4.4 million people filed using an ITN.
Okay.
And they paid $23.6 billion in total taxes.
Wow, in 1 year.
In 1 year. But if you look long term, it's even more staggering. By 2007, ITN filers had already contributed up to $240 billion to the Social Security Trust Fund.
Wait, $240 billion paid into Social Security by people who, for the most part, can't even claim the benefit.
Precisely. And the sources argue that this contribution has actually helped forestall solvency crises in the Social Security system. It's this huge inflow of money that stabilizes the system for everybody.
That context is just vital.
Okay.
Let's pivot from tax compliance to wealth creation. So the first hurdle for any ITN holder is, of course, credit. Without an SSN, you often start out as credit invisible, right?
Exactly. They're invisible to the normal automated systems. If you have an SSN, you just hop online, go to annualcreditreport.com, and you have your report in minutes.
Yeah.
For ITIN holders, getting that same report, which you absolutely need, it requires a whole specific manual process. It just adds this layer of friction right at the start.
So if I'm listening right now, I have an ITN, I need my credit report. What does that kind of cumbersome process actually look like?
You have to contact the 3 major bureaus Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion directly. You can't just click a button online. You have to submit a formal written request.
A written request. By mail.
Usually by mail, yeah. Sometimes by phone, but mail is the standard.
Yeah.
And that request has to have everything. Your ITIN, full legal name, date of birth, all your addresses for the last 2 years.
And copies of your ID, proof of address, like a utility bill.
Right, all of it. It's a whole packet of information just to prove you exist in their system.
It sounds like a whole afternoon of work. Are any of the bureaus trying to modernize this at all?
Well, Equifax is starting to. They have an online option now through My Equifax. It can get you 6 free reports a year and a monthly Vantage score.
Oh, that's something.
It is. And because of that, a service like MyFICO can sometimes pull your score since it uses the Equifax database. So there are a few little tech pathways opening up, but it's still mostly manual.
Okay, before we get into how to build a score, there's a huge warning in the source that we need to talk about. These things called CPNs.
Yes, this is so important. CPNs, or credit privacy numbers, are illegal scams. They promise this quick fix to get credit, but they're often tied to stolen or misused Social Security numbers.
So just stay away.
Absolutely avoid them. Building credit with your ITIN legally takes time, but it's the only safe and, effective way to do it.
A good point. Okay, so what are the actionable strategies? I just got my ITN. What's my first most reliable step?
The best place to start is almost always a secured credit card.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. You provide a cash deposit, say $200 to $500, and that deposit becomes your credit limit.
And that works because it basically eliminates the risk for the lender?
Completely. If you don't pay, they just keep your deposit. So for them, it's a no-brainer. But for you, it starts building a positive payment history that gets reported to the bureaus. It's a win-win.
Makes sense. What's the second strategy?
Credit builder loans. These are interesting because they kind of work in reverse.
You don't get the money up front.
Exactly. You make payments into a locked savings account, and once you've paid the full amount, you get the money. But every single one of those on-time payments gets reported as positive credit history.
That's a clever way to generate a credit history without any real lending risk.
It is. And the third option is becoming an authorized user. If you have a trusted friend or family member with great credit, low balances, always pays on time, they can add you to their account.
Piggybacking.
That's the term, yeah. And their good history can start reflecting on your report pretty quickly.
And that's so powerful because we know the payment history is, 35 to 41% of your score? And then credit utilization is another 20 to 30%.
Those are the two biggest pillars.
So building those responsibly is how you create that financial passport. Oh. And it takes about 3 to 6 months of reported activity to get that first score.
Right. That's the general time frame, yes. 3 to 6 months.
All right. Moving beyond just getting a credit score, let's talk about leveraging it for, major wealth creation. This was the big surprise for me in the research investment access. I think most people assume, no SSN, no access to the U.S. stock market.
And what's fascinating is that the system is way more open than people think. I mean, there is no law in the United States that stops an ITN holder from investing in the stock market.
So the barrier isn't legal, it's, administrative?
It's purely administrative. It just depends on whether a specific brokerage is willing to process the ITN instead of an SSN.
That is a huge deal. So which of the big brokerages are ITN friendly?
Our sources pointed to 3 major ones: Fidelity, Charles Schwab, and TD Ameritrade.
Wow, those are the heavy hitters. And are we just talking basic brokerage accounts? Or can ITIN holders actually plan for retirement?
Oh, they can absolutely plan for the long term. They can open a standard personal brokerage account, sure, but they can also open things like a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, rollover IRAs.
Really? Even tax-advantaged accounts?
Yes, and even accounts for, higher education or for their children. The access is there.
So as long as you have your ITN, name, address, bank info, the path is actually clear.
It is. You just have to meet the same income requirements as anyone else for certain accounts, like a Roth IRA, but the door is open.
Okay, let's bring it back to daily finance for a second, credit cards. The sources showed that this isn't some niche market anymore. Most of the big banks have a pathway for ITN holders.
They do, but the nuance is always in the application process. A lot of the online portals are just hard-coded to look for an SSN.
So your ITN gets kicked out automatically.
Right. It gets instantly rejected. So the key is often to apply over the phone, or even better, go into a branch in person.
It goes back to that high-touch manual process you mentioned.
Exactly.
Can you give us a sense of who's on board? Which major issuers did the sources mention?
The list is pretty long. We saw American Express mentioned for everything from cashback cards to some of their travel and business cards. Capital One is another big one, known for being accessible.
And Chase.
Chase, too. They offer access to student cards, cashback, even some of their premium Sapphire cards.
That's a huge portion of the U.S. market right there.
It really is. And you can add Citi, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo to that list as well. You just have to be persistent. With Bank of America, you might have to make a follow-up call. With Wells Fargo, they might ask you to send in your official ITIN letter for final review.
So the access is there, but you have to be willing to jump through a few extra hoops.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Now, let's shift gears to entrepreneurship, because the ITIN isn't just for personal finance. It's a direct gateway to starting a legal, compliant business in the U.S.
This is a massive and I think often overlooked opportunity. The ITIN allows an entrepreneur to file federal taxes legally, which is the first step to compliance. For foreign-owned businesses, this is crucial for filing things like Form 5472.
And for just the day-to-day running of a company.
It's essential. It lets you open a business bank account, which is critical for separating your funds. It helps you apply for business licenses and permits and set up utilities for your company.
And the big one, the EIN.
Yes. An ITIN holder can get an employer identification number, an EIN, from the IRS. The EIN is basically the social security number for a business. It's what you need to start a formal entity.
Like an LLC or a C Corp.
Exactly.
So what do the sources recommend as the best structures for ITIN holders?
The LLC, the limited liability company, is probably the most popular. It's flexible, it has pass-through taxation, and most importantly, it separates your personal liability from the business's.
Protects your personal assets.
Right. But for entrepreneurs with big ambitions, like scaling up or seeking venture capital,
They should look at a C Corp.
a C corporation is the way to go there. It's taxed separately, which is a bit more complex, but it presents a much more credible and standard structure for outside investors.
This gives a really comprehensive picture of wealth building, from credit to retirement to launching a business. But the biggest financial goal for most people is home ownership.
And that brings us to the most complex piece of the puzzle, ITIN mortgages.
This segment, for me, just revealed this profound economic opportunity that's being held back by, well, policy friction.
Absolutely. The research shows that Latino households, many of whom are ITIN holders, are projected to drive almost 70% of all new homeownership gains through 2040. The demand is enormous.
And yet, the actual number of these loans being made is tiny. There's this huge disconnect. Give us the numbers.
The numbers are alarming. In 2023, there were only an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 ITIN mortgages made in the entire country.
5,000 to 6,000.
Okay.
And the potential market.
The potential market, if you remove the systemic barriers, is estimated to be somewhere between 73,000 and 88,000 new mortgages every year.
That is a staggering gap. That's over 80,000 loans a year that aren't being made.
Good, solid loans, too.
Right. And that's the paradox, isn't it? The performance of the few ITN loans that are being made. You'd think they must be incredibly risky, right?
You would think so, but it's the complete opposite. The lenders we saw interviewed in the sources, they overwhelmingly said these loans perform just as well, if not better, than traditional SSN loans.
Better.
Often better. They see very low delinquency rates. And that's often attributed to strong financial discipline, a real aversion to debt, and often multiple household earners contributing to the payment.
So wait, if the loans perform better, why do they come with such punitive terms? The sources said the interest rates and down payments are much higher.
That's the frustrating part. Despite being less risky, ITN loans typically have interest rates that are 50 to 200 basis points higher.
That's 0.5% to 2% higher.
Exactly. And the down payments are huge, usually 10 to 20% compared to, 3.5% or 5% for a standard FHA loan.
So what's holding the market back? If the loans are safe and the demand is huge, this has to come down to policy.
It does. The core barrier is the lack of a secondary market for these loans.
Okay, let's break that down. The secondary market, that's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the GSEs.
Exactly. The government-sponsored enterprises, Fannie and Freddie, they are the massive buyers of mortgages. But they, along with the FHA, largely do not purchase or insure ITN loans.
Why not?
Because of an administrative rule, a requirement for legal presence in the United States. That's the hurdle.
And what's the real-world impact of them not buying these loans? Why does that stop the original lenders?
It creates a huge liquidity problem. So a local lender, like a credit union or a CDFI, makes a mortgage. They want to sell that loan to Fannie Mae almost immediately to get their cash back.
So they can use that cash to make more loans.
Right. They can turn that one loan into a dozen more. But if Fannie won't buy the ITN loan, that local lender is forced to keep it on its own books, in its own portfolio.
Which means they run out of cash to lend very, very quickly.
Exactly. It severely limits how many loans they can make, and it keeps the supply artificially low. It traps tens of thousands of potential homeowners out of the market.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive. I mean, a 9-digit tax number is actually this massive financial tool. We've seen how the ITA is a powerful key for building credit, for accessing the stock market, for starting a business, and for this huge underserved mortgage market.
The key takeaway for me is just the sheer scale of that untapped opportunity. The gap between the 5,000 ITN mortgages being made and the potential for 88,000, it just shows that tens of thousands of good, reliable, low-risk loans are going unmade.
And it's all because of policy friction in that secondary market.
Solely because of that.
So let's leave our listener with this provocative thought, based on everything we've looked at today. The evidence overwhelmingly shows these ITIN loans perform exceptionally well. They serve a vital tax-paying segment of the population. So what specific data would policymakers need to see to finally overcome their current perception of risk?
And to build on that, considering the economic and societal cost of locking out almost 88,000 potential new homeowners every single year, if that one administrative policy could be changed to unlock that market, what is the true long-term economic cost of not acting on this evidence right now? Something to think about.